TV10 Mobile.
And now, from the Gulf Coast news source, Juan Gomez, Bill Evans, and Bob Grett. This is the News 10 Early Edition.
Good evening, everyone. We made it through another one, and now it looks like it's all over. Hurricane Elena started her path of destruction back toward the Gulf Coast yesterday. Here's how things looked in the central part of coastal Florida and near Panama City, where Dave Straker had been chasing the storm. He didn't know it would turn around and chase him back home. Elena then swept through Pensacola, causing extensive damage to the beach, but not much to the city. Then on to Gulf Shores, where the public area along the Strip is now history. The storm tore through Mobile in the early dawn hours this morning, flooding the causeway and knocking down tree limbs. But then she really unleashed on Dauphin Island. People who were here for Frederick 6 years ago say Elena was far worse. Bill Evans has been following the storm since it really started last week. What's it doing now?
Right now, it's bringing lots of rain to southwestern Mississippi.
6 o'clock Labor Day night, and thankfully a long weekend of tension and waiting ended for residents along the Gulf Coast as Hurricane Elena finally came ashore. News 10 reporters and photographers showed our viewers what the storm had really done here. Our survey of Gulf Coast damage began on Dauphin Island, a barrier island south of Mobile.
Elena's wrath was still being felt late this morning near Dauphin Island. The beach road to the island was covered with debris, making it nearly impassable. This was just the beginning. Once on the island, it was clear this was the hardest hit area in Alabama. Dauphin Island was devastated by Elena. She tossed around the boats at the marina like toys. This trailer park was completely smashed. She turned beach homes upside down and inside out, scattering roofs and furniture everywhere. Although Elena wreaked about $30 million worth of havoc, she didn't claim any lives. And Petronas was one of a handful of islanders who rode out the hurricane. What did it sound like down here?
Well, now in Frederick, it was a roar. You know, the wind was so much stronger. But last night we could hear the wind, but we couldn't. We didn't hear any trees fall or anything, and our glass doors were shaking a little bit this morning.
Yeah. Hurricane Frederick may have been a stronger storm in 1979, but Hurricane Elena matched Frederick's winds of destruction. For Dauphin Island, it is like a recurring nightmare. How did the island fare this time compared to Frederick?
I think it's going to be about the same. About the only difference is we still have a bridge.
Tonight the island is closed to landowners and sightseers. There is no water or power. Roads are unsafe. It may take years to recover from Elena, the hurricane that teased Dauphin Island for 3 days, then destroyed it in one night. Carolyn Martin, News 10.
Residents and homeowners were allowed on the island for 45 minutes this afternoon to check property damage. However, the island is still officially closed tonight, and authorities are not sure when people will be allowed to return to their homes. There was also no telephone service on the island tonight. Continental Telephone, which services the area, says it lost part of the roof on a new switcher system, cutting off service to that area as well as Bayou-de-Battery, Foul River, Irvington, and Grand Bay. Continental will restore service as soon as possible. While Dauphin Island was hit hard by Elena, the folks in South Baldwin County and especially the Pleasure Island area are counting their blessings. Michelle Meredith was one of the first reporters on the island and assesses the damage.
Elena made her presence known in South Baldwin County. She pelted the streets with rain, whipped the signs, the trees, the traffic lights, the power lines with her winds. By 2 o'clock, she was beating on Pleasure Island's door. Even though the worst was over, the seas were still churning, but it was clear to see that Pleasure Island came out like a champ. There was damage, no denying that. The boardwalk had been washed away. Metal was twisted around trees. Power lines were down. Some parts of the beach road were an obstacle course. Some buildings lost their roofs. Some buildings lost their foundations. Others could stand to lose some water. But most everything stood its ground, minus a few shingles. It's not how they remember Freddie.
I was down here 2 days after Frederick, and it's no comparison whatsoever. The damage this time is minimum compared to what it was after Frederick. You couldn't have gotten anywhere near close to where we are right now.
This time round, Boyd Smith was happy to come home.
It was worth about 15 cents last night, about 1 o'clock.
What's it worth today?
It's worth we coming back.
Even the big condo survived Elena. One spilled its guts, air conditioner guts. Cleanup crews worked to shove the mess out of the way.
Yes, ma'am.
How
You go right ahead.
Property owners lined up to get on the island to see what Elena left them. Hours after Elena was gone, the seas were rough and windy. To show you how hard the wind is blowing, this is how hard it is to walk up here. You feel like you're walking on the moon sometimes. As far as they're concerned, any kind of walk today is better than the ride Freddie took them on back in '79. Reporting from Pleasure Island, Michelle Meredith, News 10.
The eye of the storm passed over Mississippi early this morning, and the people in Biloxi and Gulfport are just now beginning to dig out from the hurricane. Jackie D'Antonios followed the storm all the way through Mississippi. What was it like?
It was really scary there for a while. You know, it didn't take Elena very long to carve her path of destruction. The hurricane did move through fairly quickly, but the residents there are suffering from an amazing amount of damage.
6 a.m., Waveland, Mississippi. The tide has been sucked out by Elena, which is bearing down on the area. 7 a.m., the wait is over. Hurricane-strength winds blow through downtown. Sheets of rain make driving almost impossible. Residents head for cover. Anything will do, hotels or an emergency shelter. More than 500 people camped out in this school to ride out Elena. High winds wreaked havoc everywhere. Downed power lines, broken trees. They even flipped over trailers parked along the highway. By 10 o'clock, it was clear the brunt of the storm hit Biloxi and Gulfport. Alice Wright was in her house when Elena hit.
Oh, baby, it was rough. Oh, it went whistle. It was, I can't explain it, but you tell about rough, it was rough.
71-year-old S.P. Lee was also in his home when Elena hit. The roof of his house was torn off, and he seemed too stunned to leave. Everywhere we looked, the force of the hurricane was frightening.
Real bad is the roofs are being torn off of hotels, power lines are all down, trees are falling down middle of the roads. It's real bad.
Folks in the area may be without electricity for days, and although damage will total in the thousands, no one was killed. When you look around the area, you have to think that's a miracle.
So while it took Elena a long time to figure out just where she was going, when she finally did pick her spot, she seemed to wreak havoc everywhere, and they're going to be digging out for a couple more days.
An awful lot of damage. Thank you, Jackie. After chasing Hurricane Elena for about 1,000 miles up and down the Gulf Coast, Dave Straker spent the last 24 hours in Panama City, Florida. Tonight, he tells us about the damage to that city.
The eye of Elena passed about 40 miles south of Panama City at about 9 last night. It was tough out there, but the predicted 130-mile-per-hour winds and tidal surge never materialized. And this morning, relative calm returned to the beach communities. At Mama's sandwich shop, Mama stayed in her shelter, but Mama's son came to check things out.
Well, I'd say we worked it out pretty well. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been better. But fortunately, things worked out to where damage was minimal.
Panama City has been a condo land a lot longer than Gulf Shores, and the older high-rises here stood up well against Elena's fury. A few small hotels like the Stingray were not so fortunate. The roof here ended up in the pool across the street. To the west in Destin, boats anchored in the harbor came out okay. But the owner of this structure said his former boathouse is now only useful as a modern art sculpture. At Fort Walton Beach, the Wayside Park Pier looked like this on Friday. Today, it's missing a span and must be rebuilt for the second time in just a few years. Its only use now is as a sightseeing attraction. From Fort Walton Beach, Dave Straker, News 10.
By Monday afternoon, people in downtown Mobile and all along the Gulf Coast could begin their final cleanup from Elena. It had been 5 days since we all started getting ready for what would turn out to be the region's worst hurricane in 6 years. And on that Thursday before Labor Day, most of the concern was for people living along the beach.
Leave Dauphin Island shortly. The tide is rising. We advise you to leave Dauphin Island shortly. The tide is rising.
And as News 10 reporter Carolyn Martin found out Thursday night, most Dauphin Island residents took the warning seriously.
Dauphin Island is experiencing the calm before the storm tonight. The surf is up from this afternoon, but it's still a long way from being angry. Homeowners are generating more activity than Mother Nature. The Fowlers aren't taking any chances with their summer home belongings. You're down kind of late working on all this.
That's right. We were a little late getting down here, and we had a bad experience with Hurricane Frederick, so we decided it would be best to go ahead and, get everything out now as we could.
The island was evacuated at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Stores are boarded up, but there's still some activity here tonight. Ben Berger's shop was open for the diehards. Are you people staying tonight? You're not going to go home? You're not worried?
No, I live where we are. Got to stay right with it.
I think after daylight tomorrow when we're going to have our problems.
How are you planning to make it through?
I'm going to come through with flying colors.
You rode out Frederick. You going to ride this one out?
Yes, I'm sure I will.
Although the island is battened down for the evening, most of the people here don't expect any major problems tonight. In fact, they consider themselves rather lucky that they've gotten a break and that the hurricane won't hit here until daylight. On Dauphin Island, Carolyn Martin, News 10 Nightcast.
But by Friday, people's worst fears had not come true. Dauphin Island got some high water, but not major damage. The same thing was true for other resort areas like Gulf Shores, Alabama.
The waves are already pounding into Gulf Shores, big waves. They helped Elena get some of her licks in. Some beach houses are already standing in water. The beach is already littered with condo parts. One section of West Beach Road has completely vanished. For some of the big condos, it does not look promising. Down at the hangout, waves are thrashing the pavilion. We've got a few holdouts snapping before and after shots. Mike Garrett is leaving today.
We were planning on staying, and when we come out here and started looking at the waves, we said, well, it's time to go.
Folks sneaking their last peek noticed one pier is already missing a hunk of wood. It was not encouraging.
Looks rough, real rough, and it's not even here yet.
Sir, y'all will have to turn around.
Hey, I gotta go now. My wife is on the island.
All right, so no, we cannot let you go.
Well, I got to.
Well, you can't.
State troopers are doing what they can to keep people from coming back on the island. There's basically no people, no traffic. Pleasure Island is literally a deserted island. The evacuation centers are not deserted. They're getting more and more crowded. Crowded with people like Dorothy.
Oh, right now I don't know what to expect. Just sitting and waiting.
Everyone's waiting for Elena to finish her dirty work. Reporting from Baldwin County, Michelle Meredith, News 10.
So Friday night became a night to pack up. People forced to abandon their houses Thursday night were allowed to go home for the Labor Day weekend as hurricane warnings were lifted and the storm headed down the Florida coast.
Dauphin Island looked like a postcard tonight. After 2 days of anticipation, Mother Nature didn't let the sightseers down. The hurricane that never was did manage to rearrange the beach, stretching it across the side roads. Water is still standing in parts of the main beach boulevard, but it is passable. Basically, the island is messy tonight, but manageable.
We saved it last time, and thank goodness Elena didn't come in this time.
Everyone on the island is celebrating tonight. It's been happy hour at Ben Berger's store since the warning was lifted at 5 o'clock.
It's a lot of them already come back, though. Without calling, they just coming back to the island, just like nothing ever happened.
Why did you guys come down?
Fish. Check on things, really.
Everything okay?
Yeah, great. Everything's great.
It looks like you called this one right. You said we wouldn't get much, and we didn't.
I'm glad, real glad. I'm tickled to death.
This story has a double happy ending. Not only is the weather getting better here, but the people are coming back. Already tonight, tourists from New Orleans and Birmingham have been calling in. It looks like the big Labor Day weekend may be salvaged after all. On Dauphin Island, Carolyn Martin, News 10 Nightcast.
But the road back home was not smooth for everyone. Here's what happened Friday night when Pleasure Island, Alabama residents tried to go home.
But none of them have said, we absolutely guarantee that the storm is going that way. Have you heard any of them say that?
No, but I don't
think you have.
Okay.
At the foot of the bridge to Pleasure Island, there was a massive traffic jam and mass confusion. Everyone in Alabama could go home except the folks living on Pleasure Island.
They turned us loose up at the school, told us to come home. They were going to let us come home. we're all down here. You can see how far home we're going.
We heard on television that the thing had been lifted, so we come home. And now we're sitting here and we can't get home. It's as simple as that.
And they meant business. They had the road blocked off and state troopers standing on guard. There was nothing left for them to do but fume and wait with their loved ones. Although the power and sewer lines have been cut in some parts of Pleasure Island, everything seems basically intact. The problem? If the hurricane should change its mind and swing back this way, they'd have a very hard time getting everyone off the island in time. But there were more problems. Not everything is intact. Some parts of the beach boardwalk are ancient history. Elena ate them for a snack. Police are also concerned about looting. At 9:40, they gave them the answer. They cannot go home. The police department had some very unhappy customers, but as one policeman put it, we've yet to lose anyone to a hurricane in Gulf Shores, and we plan to keep it that way. Reporting from Pleasure Island, Michelle Meredith, News 10 Nightcast.
By Saturday morning, traffic was once again flowing to Pleasure Island as residents finally got a chance to go home. And in Mobile and elsewhere, people started dismantling the fortresses put up to hold back Elena. Elena began her move down the Florida coast, and since the storm had caused so much activity and apprehension in our area, News 10 reporter Dave Straker followed Elena's path into Florida.
This morning on Highway 98, east of Apalachicola, we began to see the fury of Elena. This road eventually had to be closed because water had undermined what was left of the pavement. But the toughest winds have been slamming all day against a piece of land on Florida's west coast, 100 miles north of Tampa. It's called Cedar Key.
By 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, this is as close as one can get to Cedar Key, Florida. There are about 20 civilians and 5 police officers weathering out the storm about 2 miles down whatever's left of that road.
Some of the so-called experts now predict landfall here at Cedar Key sometime before daybreak, but we all know how accurate the experts have been. Tornadoes have been a big problem in central Florida today. More may be on the way tonight. And flooding has been heavy in Tampa and may become even more widespread as this story unfolds. Hopefully by tomorrow we will know just what Elena will have finally brought to central Florida. We will be here. From Ocala, Florida, Dave Straker, News 10 Nightcast.
But on Sunday, Elena did an about-face and headed back our way, forcing people to quickly board up their property and get out of their homes, a routine that was becoming all too familiar.
Oh, boy. Not again.
That pretty much summed up the feelings on Dauphin Island today. For the second time, the holiday weekend crowd has had to pack up and leave. Island homeowners have spent more time this weekend boarding and reboarding windows than they have holidaying.
Yeah, we had taken everything down thinking it was going to hit down farther south.
A squall that hit the island around mid-afternoon hurried the evacuation along. Many thought it was the real thing. The beach later showed signs of the hasty evacuation, but clear if windy weather has been the rule today. A few diehards got in a few last rides, and vacationers took one last look before leaving. Marlene Ogburn and her husband came here from Orlando for a family reunion. Elena had already rerouted their trip here through Tuscaloosa.
When Frederick came in, it seems like it came in and it left, and everything was really quick, and the damage was terrible, but it was over with. This one has just played games with us, and it's sent us all tracking all around the country, and we're tired of running from it.
Businesses here have already been damaged by Elena. They've been hit hard in the cash register. Most had shut down by 7, but by then the island was virtually deserted. Police are not letting anyone back on the island tonight. There's no count at this point of how many people are staying behind, but it's not many. Near Dauphin Island, I'm Alan Green, News 10 Nightcast.
Helen says despite Friday's false alarm, people are still paying attention to the warnings. Well, some of those people who fled the island are now in emergency shelters in and around Mobile County. The Red Cross reports there are more than 1,200 people in the 15 Red Cross shelters in Mobile. Carolyn Martin is at Theodore High School, where many evacuees are waiting out the storm. Carolyn, what's the mood there right now?
Well, Bob, I can tell you right off the bat that most of the people who are in shelters must be here in Theodore. We are right now in the Theodore High School gym along with 500 other people, as you can see them there behind me. Altogether, so far tonight, 1,000 people have checked into the shelter seeking shelter from Elena. They'll be here for the whole night and part of tomorrow, as far as we know at this point. Already there have been more people check into the shelter tonight than they did Thursday night, so apparently people here are taking this very seriously.
As the shelters continued to fill, the News 10 team continued to let Gulf Coast residents know what to expect. We aired hurricane updates on the hour and half hour around the clock, both times Elena visited our area. We were able to not only give our viewers a first-hand look at what was happening outside, but also what to expect next.
There is something brand new out, some brand new information. The Mobile County officials and the state of Alabama have issued a mandatory evacuation order for the following areas. This is brand new. Areas along East and West Fowl River, Deer River, Bell Fountain and Hollinger's Island adjacent to Mobile Bay, Dog River, and other areas east of I-65 that border Mobile Bay, including Bayou Sarah, Gunnison Creek, Chickasaw Creek, and the Blackjack area. I'll go over that one more time since this is something brand new just out from the emergency officials. This is a mandatory evacuation order. If you live in any of the following areas, you must leave those areas right now. Areas along East and West Fowl River, Deer River, Bell Fountain and Hollinger's Island adjacent to Mobile Bay, Dog River, and other areas east of I-65 that border the bay. That includes Bayou Sarah, Gunnison Creek, Chickasaw Creek, and the Blackjack area. Now, there is plenty of room in shelters in Mobile County. There is some concern about storm surge moving up the Mobile River into the low-lying areas near the bay. That's why the state and local officials want people out of the low-lying areas right now. Don't wait until dawn. It may be too late. As you can probably tell, since I'm outside the studios right now, it is a little bit windy. I'm beginning to feel a little bit of rain. The streets are deserted. They should be. Everybody should be inside in a shelter. Bill Evans has the latest on what the hurricane is doing right off the coast. Bill?
Bob, looks like some of those winds are getting to you there. Those winds are beginning to push in from the northeast, and that is why lots of water is always expected in the Dog River area, Fowl River, because the northeast winds will push more water into that area. Of course, Dogwood, right there around the marina, always gets flooded this time of the year. Now, let's take a look at the satellite first, and we'll show you the storm as it continues to the northwest, 10 miles per hour. And here are the statistics once again. Winds at 125 miles per hour still in Hurricane Elena. The movement is to the west-northwest still at 290 degrees on the compass. 290 degrees west-northwest, 12 miles per hour, and the barometer is still holding steady. So, Bob, things as far as the storm is concerned, it is still moving to the northwest. It's bringing lots of rain to northwest Florida, where I understand Ed Highland is right now.
I am standing by, yes, in the rain, and we are getting rained on rather tremendously right at the moment. The storm definitely is just off the coast of Pensacola. It has intensified. This is the worst we have seen it in the last hour or so. At this point, we still have no reports of the winds gusting above the minimum hurricane level, which is 75 miles per hour. Last we heard was about 68 miles per hour. But as you can see, the rains have increased tremendously. And what they're starting to worry about now is the other side of the hurricane. When the wind, or when the eye of the storm passes us within the next hour or so, the winds are going to totally change direction and go the other way. What they're worried about is obviously that storm surge that comes with the change in the winds. That storm surge is right now predicted between 8 and 12 feet. That would be the most damaging to the Pensacola area. For those of you who are not familiar with our Florida Bureau, we are right in the heart of downtown Pensacola, so we do know exactly what is going on, just a few blocks from the waterfront. Seville Quarter is immediately behind me, but as you can probably see, or perhaps possibly see, we have not lost power in the downtown area. This is one of the evacuation zones, one of the first places you would think power would be lost. Fortunately for us, we've been able to stay on the air. Other parts of Pensacola have not been so lucky, though. There are widespread power outages and many downed power lines. Obviously, the place to be right now is in some type of shelter, which is where I'm going to go right now. Bob?
All right, thanks, Ed. We have an update on just what Ed was experiencing. Winds along the coast near Pensacola were gusting near 60 miles an hour a short time ago. Tides are already running 8 to 12 feet above normal, and there were a number of power outages in the Pensacola area. Fortunately, Ed is not in the middle of one of them. In Walton County, they're reporting moderate to heavy rain with winds 45 to 55 miles an hour. In Okaloosa County, reports that winds were too high to go outside to check the tides. That's pretty high. Santa Rosa County reported winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour. Due to the strong northeasterly winds, tides in both rivers and bays were 2 feet above normal. And right now, the National Weather Service believes that Elena may pass 35 to 40 miles south of Pensacola.
Finally, about 5 o'clock Labor Day morning, Elena passed through downtown Mobile, headed toward Mississippi. TV 10 kept bringing our viewers updates every half hour, with our reporters providing first-hand accounts of the damage they saw.
Tropical storm Elena, she's been downgraded to a tropical storm from hurricane status. Winds are now 60 miles an hour. Is in Mississippi right now, slowly dying, but it certainly left its mark on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and especially on Dauphin Island. Carolyn Martin was up on Dauphin Island this morning just a few hours after the eye passed. It was a mess, wasn't it?
It really is, Bob. Basically, anyone who was around after Hurricane Frederick knows what Dauphin Island looks like this afternoon. It really is devastating down there. You've got all kinds of houses that are totally destroyed. You can see some of the video here. This looks just like Frederick video, but this is Elena video. Both houses on the Sound side and on the Gulf side were destroyed. Here's a shot of the marina. Boats were tossed about. The hurricane just basically wreaked a lot of havoc on Dauphin Island.
People say this was as bad as Frederick, or perhaps even greater destruction.
Oh yes, it's absolutely just as bad. To me, I was here for Hurricane Frederick. My family has a cabin on Dauphin Island. This is like a recurring nightmare. We went down there, photographer Paula Ross and I went down there this morning, and I couldn't believe I was seeing it all over again. It is just like reliving Frederick.
What would you say to the people who have property, who have a condo or have a home on Dauphin Island? They have a lot to be concerned about.
Oh yes, well of course they do. I can tell you that Sheriff Tom Purvis has closed Dauphin Island to sightseers and homeowners. However, he probably will open the island tomorrow around noon or so, so that people will be able to get down and check on their belongings and whatnot. He is certainly aware, as well as the county is aware, that people want to know what's going on with their houses down there, because there's furniture scattered all over the place, roofs, lumber, all kinds of things. But basically, it's just not very safe to be down there right now.
Despite the devastation to the coastal areas, residents were allowed to return home to start rebuilding their lives. 4 days after Elena passed, reporter Carolyn Martin returned to the hardest hit area in Alabama, Dauphin Island, to reflect on what had certainly been an emotion-filled week.
Leave Dauphin Island shortly. The tide is rising. We advise you to leave Dauphin Island shortly. The tide is rising.
You're not leaving?
No. We left in Frederick and Atlanta got killed in Mobile, so I'm going to stay here this time.
If this is supposed to be the calm before the storm, Dauphin Island appears to be in for a real beating tonight. But since Elena has been so unpredictable, some of the islanders feel they may get by with just a little flooding. About 25 residents here will take their chances tonight. They'll ride out Elena right here on Dauphin Island.
I've been a sea captain for 38 years. I rode hurricanes out at sea and never lost a ship. And I built this last year and it's all gone.
It's like a funeral. It's sad. When I come down here, I can't, I just stand here and look at it. I come down here to pack up things and I just stand and look and I don't know what to pack up. And then when I get back to Mobile, well then what I should have gotten. Yeah, it's like a death.
Last Friday night, we stood on this beach and showed you a spectacular sunset. Well, there aren't many pretty pictures to shoot today, so we thought we'd show you that sunset again as sort of a reminder of the way the island used to look and the way it will look with time. Carolyn Martin, News 10.